Hello, everyone. Welcome to another one shot from the CODEX station. I'm your host, Sonny Kruger, and joining me today is Patrick Hickey Jr. He is the founder of ReviewFix.com. He's the co-founder of Legacy Comics, and he's the writer of the Minds Behind the Games series, The Job, Condre, Brooklyn Bleeds, and Dumb Goals. Thank you for joining us today, Patrick.
What's up, man? Happy to be here.
Glad to have you here. So I was having a little bit of problems earlier, but I got you here. It's all settled.
You got 99 problems, but ain't one, so it's all good. It is all good, man.
We're good. We got you here. So now a one shot is where we ask a comic creator one question and one question only. So Patrick, my question from everyone at the Codex station is, what is the story behind making your own comic book company?
Woo! It's a beefy one. So I have about 20 years of experience as a journalist. I'm a former NBC editor. I still write for Old School Gamer magazine. I own my own entertainment website. I've written 7 books on video game history in over 2,000 libraries worldwide, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, the whole 9 yards. But I wrote this comic book script when I was about 18 and ended writing about 8 issues, was really happy with it, but could never find an artist. And then it's like every time I would find an artist, it wouldn't work out or it wasn't where I wanted it to be. So I just continued to work as a journalist, covering minor league baseball, then professional baseball and minor league hockey, then professional hockey, and then I covered 3 seasons of Saturday Night Live. I covered the Romney-Obama election. I covered 2 Olympics.
Busy guy.
Yeah, man, try and get married, having kids, and then wrote the first book, The Minds Behind the Games, and then that led into some voice acting opportunities, and done voice acting in about 25 different video games, trailers, lead, so on Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, Steam. So it's been a lot of fun, but it's like doing all these cool things. And I'm still looking at that comic book script just standing there. It's like something out of Edgar Allan Poe, just like bring me to life,
Won't let you forget it. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And the thing that sucked was like every time someone read it, they were like, "This is so good. Why can't you do something with this?" And I'm just like, because I want it to be a comic, not a fiction series, not this, not that. I want it to be a comic book. And then finally in the summer of 2019, I met Kieran Quinn, and we did like a 6-8 we did a 6-page ashcan, and by Christmas of 2019 we were getting ready to start pitching that to like Dark Horse, Image, Dynamite, IDW, all these places. And then what happened like early 2020, COVID like
Changed the
sucked
world.
for anybody that didn't want to like if you wanted to publish with a legit comic book company and you were unpublished, it didn't matter that I had all of this background in media, and they wanted seasoned comic book writers, so we got answers back, and it was basically like, oh, we're not really accepting anything right now from indie developers, from indie creators. So I'm like, okay. So then I get an opportunity to interview the head of lesser known comics. His name is Mark Burnell. And this is probably a couple of months later. This is probably like January of 2021. I do an interview with him for ReviewFix.com. Gets a ton of traffic, really good numbers and stuff. And he emailed me back, super cordial, and was like, if there's ever anything that I could do for you. I'm just like, yeah, no big deal. Because I mean, I've been doing this journalism thing for 20 years. It's like that happens to me all the time. I interview singers, songwriters, actors, comic book writers, like every day. It's like whatever, And then I got off the phone with him, and I just heard his voice again. I was like, if there's ever anything I can do for you. So then I just shot him an email with that 6-page ashcan. I'm like, tell me what you think. Half hour later, he's like, yeah, I had to sign you guys. Like, you guys are the real deal. And that was Condre 0. And then we were kind of off to the races.
Right now.
Yep. Yeah, we have hats, we have iPhone cases, like bandanas, stickers. Like, it's insane. It's crazy how much. Like, my daughter has like CGC Condre graded in her room and stuff. Like, she's 6 and she likes vigilantes that kill people in Brooklyn. She's awesome. But so we did issues 0, 1, 2, and 3 with lesser known comics, myself and Kieran Quinn. And I really like those guys over at lesser known comics, but I have a lot more experience in the publishing industry than they do. And after a couple of months, it was kind of apparent that we were outgrowing them. And there wasn't really an avenue for me to write other series as well. And Brian Michael Bendis is like one of my heroes. So is Roy Thomas, Jim Shooter, Frank Miller.
Nice.
These are all guys that wrote like multiple series. You know, Mark Miller. You know, these are people that aren't known for one thing. They've written like 3 or 4 different things. You know, and I didn't want to be just known for Condry. You know, and I pitched The Job. I pitched Kroom. I pitched the Condry spin-off, Cerrito, all to lesser-known comics, kind of knowing what the answer was going to be. And they're like, oh, just keep focusing on Condry, because Condry was moving. So I was like, okay. I ended up getting us a really big signing at the biggest comic book store in Brooklyn, New York, Bulletproof Comics. Frank Miller just signed there like 3 months ago.
Nice.
They get big name people there all the time. So we did a signing there, and we were moving books. Like it was nuts. And at that moment, I'm just like, I organized a signing all by myself. I marketed it. I did all like the behind the scenes stuff. I'm like, why can't I start my own comic book company? So one of my buddies that lived around the corner from me, John Svedesi, he's got a lot of experience in graphic design and stuff like that, and videos and promos and stuff. And I'm like, and he did a variant cover for me at one point for Condry. I was like, we should start a comic book company together. And he was just like, really? And it took us like a month to come up with a business plan. We filed the LLC. I have a really good lawyer, called her up. She helped us out with all the paperwork and stuff. And I was contracted by Lesser Known to do Condry 3. And it was like the day that Condry 3 came out, I called him up and I'm like, I'm done. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I lived up to my end of the contract. I did everything that I told you that I was going to do. I'm like, you know, thank you very much. They ended up pledging our Kickstarter. There was like no bad blood, some bad blood later, but that's what happens, you know, when you go and do your own thing. So I basically, all the stuff that I pitched to Lesser Known moved over to Legacy, and we started hiring artists to do those things, and we have been off to the races. Like we've produced since May of 2022, we've produced 25 single issue comics, 6 digital exclusives. So it's so funny because every once in a while I go to like Lesser Known and a couple of the other indie companies that are like in the same area as us, you know, in terms of like circulation and stuff. And we're producing more or just about the same as them. So it's so funny how I'm basically by myself. So what happened was, after like 5 or 6 months, a Kickstarter is a lot of fun, Sonny. Like people are just donating and you're just like counting the money. You're like, yes, oh my God, this is so much fun. And then when the Kickstarter is over and you realize that you have to not only fulfill your end of the bargain by producing the things that you said that you were going to, and then shipping all of those things. Like we had 104 backers. So we had to like pack like 104 Gemini boxes. It was like, we sold like 500 something comics from our Kickstarter. And it was like, I could tell that that some of the other people on my team were like, I didn't sign up for this. I just want to make comics. And that's what I said before. Like I idolize Jim Shooter big time, because Jim Shooter is he was editor-in-chief of Marvel, but I mean, he was a great writer, but he was a smart guy, and he could walk around in a suit and people would take him seriously in a business meeting, and then he could walk around with his hat on around the bullpen and be like, guys, I know what it's like to write a 6-issue arc. I know what it's like to write this. Like he could, you know, like it's like one of those, like if Michael Jordan
too,
yeah, man, it's like if Michael Jordan was a great coach, you'd be like, I want to listen to this guy. You know, obviously Michael Jordan's not the best coach, but like Jim Shooter to me is like one of those guys that like can do both. He can be an editor-in-chief and he can be a lead writer. So that's kind of like what I've tried to be. But I ended up having a conversation with John like last summer, and I was like, I need to take over this company like by myself. And he was just like, okay, and called up my lawyer again. drafted up all the paperwork, and for my 39th birthday, I became the sole owner of Legacy Comics. It was like the greatest gift I could ever give myself. And
Awesome.
we
Awesome
kind of,
gift. Yeah.
yeah, man. I remember I was John had left. He had signed like all of the paperwork and stuff, and the banker was like sitting across from me, and I looked at him, and I was like, so I own the whole company now, and he's like, yeah, you own the whole company. He's like, all the paperwork, all the everything goes straight to you. And I was just like, whew, and I remember I had to call the team. Sonny, it was like, because they didn't know. You try and shield your team from stuff like that, And I called my team and I was like, guys, I'm the sole owner of the company now. Like let's wish John the best on his, future endeavors and stuff like that. And they did, but it was just like all of them reached out to me individually and they're like, yo, let's go. Like now we start doing business. And we've been, oh my God. I mean, we probably like 2 months later, we got into we were signing at New York Comic Con. We've done signings at MagFest. We've done signings at the Video Game Summit in Chicago. So like this little company that's run out of my garage in Staten Island has been all over the country in the past year. I was just featured in the Staten Island Advance, which is like the biggest newspaper in Staten Island.
I did read that.
We've got
Yeah,
some
good article.
Yeah, man. We've got some other newspaper coverage coming. We're doing a comic for an off-Broadway play in December, which is really cool. I mean, I don't know any indie comic book companies that are doing comics for plays on Theater Row in New York City, So we're just we're built really different. That's how we started. It was just I was some 18-year-old that wanted to publish a comic. I finally learned how to publish and saw the company that I was working for wasn't like doing our IP proper. So I was just like, let's do it. Let's do it ourselves. And the rest they say is history. So now we're up to Condry 5 and we have 2 spin-offs. So we technically have 8 issues in the series. We're working on another one that's going to come out next spring. The Job takes place in the same universe as Condry, and we've done issues 0, 1, and 2. Like we've done so much cool stuff. So it's been a lot of fun, and we're just getting started still.
Nice, glad to hear it. Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
your
man.
inspirational story. And
Yeah,
it
man.
really is to
Thank
see
you.
how you got it. And you made your comic and you got a whole comic company now. And one thing I do realize looking at the Job in Country that they do go with wrestling, and I see that like you're a wrestling fan. So same here. So I'm like, it grabbed my
Yeah.
attention. Like, yeah, that seems like a story I'll definitely check out and
It's
be interested.
it's so much fun because like for me, I grew up in the 90s, so it's like the NWO and like like I was totally a Wolfpack guy back in the day. Like I love that stuff. And for the people that don't know, The Job is about a jobber. It's about a guy that loses every match. But he's got a smoking hot wife, who's also his valet. She comes to the ring with him, and they've got a really nice car, and people ask questions like, Dan, how did you get that? How did you get that car? And why did she marry you? And the answer is simple. They rob banks together. She's the getaway driver, and he every time he robs a bank, wears a different lucha mask, super kick somebody, takes the money, and they're off and going. Like they're terrible at wrestling, but they're great at robbing banks. And it's kind of like if Mickey Rourke's the wrestler met like 2 broke girls. Like it's like a romance comedy meets like a bank robbery, like pro wrestling documentary. It's super fun. You get the inside like of how wrestling works, like the whole behind the fourth wall kayfabe broken, and then you learn like how to rob banks. So it's a lot of fun. I think Nick Gage would love this comic.
I was just saying,
So
when you were mentioning the robbing banks, being a wrestler, that's who I was thinking of.
yeah. Don't
Exactly what
tell
was
him I
thinking
said
of.
that though. I
Show
saw
up at your
him beat
house with
up
the pizza cutter.
Jessica Havoc one time. Like it was an intergender match, and I was covering it for Review Fix, and like it was one of the most gruesome things I've ever seen in my entire life. Jessica Havoc is a big woman. Like I would not want to get in a fist fight with Jessica Havoc. And Nick Gage was just like beating the crap out of her. It was like so bad that it was like after the match was over, she was sitting backstage and she just like had her hands like this. And I walked over to her and I'm like, I've never met you in my entire life. I was like, but you are like one of the toughest human beings I've ever seen in my entire life. And she was just like, thank you so much. And I was like, no, like, yo, listen, I'm like, I've seen Pete Dunne get his forehead sliced wide open. And I'm like, that like was nothing compared to the beating that insane man just gave you. So if you're into like all that behind the scenes stuff, you'll love The Job. So
Yeah, I'm looking forward to checking out. And I think after this one shot, I think many other people are going to be checking out, all your stuff on Legacy
thank you.
Comics, checking out the job and Conjuring and everything. So everybody make sure definitely to check out all the stories by Patrick Hickey Jr. And I think, we've got a lot to talk about. I think we're going to have a full interview sometime pretty soon.
Yeah, man, it's fine. It's great.
But for now, I will wrap this one chat up. And like I said, well, after this week, we'll schedule a full-on interview. I am Sonny
Sure.
Kruger from the Codex Station. Everybody, check out all the other stuff from the Codex Station as well. And you can check us out at thecodexstation.com. And we're on all the socials. And now, Patrick, if there's any on the socials where you'd like to let everybody know where to find you and all your works and your comics and everything, now's your time to let everybody know.
I'm Google verified, so if you just write in Patrick Hickey Jr., pretty much everything comes up. There's like a little picture of me in the corner, says all the books I've written, everything. Legacy Comics, COMIX.com. On Instagram, we're legacy_comics. Facebook, I see my son's building stuff, so he's yelling at me. On Facebook, same exact thing, legacy_comics. We also have a Patreon that's updated every day. $3 a month, you get to see work in progress of all of our stuff, from like pencils, inks, and colors. Really freaking cool. We have a podcast, Talking Comics, that we do once a week, where we kind of discuss like what's going on in the company and sometimes outside of the company. This past week, I did a podcast on how I would write a Superman comic. It was a lot of fun. So, but if you join the Patreon, you get access to the podcast 3 days early. So for $3 a month, it's a pretty good buy. So we're on Patreon, Facebook, Instagram, like we're literally all over the place. So legacycomics.com. To buy comics, legacycomics.com/shop. And all of our stuff is there.
All right, well, thank you again, Patrick. And thank you
No
everyone for
problem, man.
joining us. I'll see you all on more one shots, more stuff from the Code X station. Take care.